Thank you all for coming. First point to report is we've had some sort of a circuit board fry itself. And so we need to talk to a mic in order to record it for the folks who will watch it on the web on PCTV. But the audio here in the room is not working. So it will appear as though we're talking to a mic for no reason, but there actually is a reason for it. So thank you all for coming. This is, as you know, the first workshop to examine tonight some of the issues surrounding the development of a new civic space at the west side of Memorial Plaza. More on that in a moment. But the entire board is here. Colleen is on her way. Steve, Joe, Nicole. Colleen is on her way. Most of the night will be led by our two guns for hire, which is nowhere near a fond enough report about who these people are. Phil Myrick, who many of you may know, lives on Bedford Road and is also a professional planner of high standing and is contributing his efforts tonight. And he comes with Jamie Larson, who is a landscape architect with an extremely distinguished career working on all kinds of major stuff, formerly with the firm West 8. Based on tell me if I get it wrong, Jamie, based in Belgium, but with a big New York practice doing stuff like Governor's Island. So she's fled the big city to the Hudson Valley and is set up a Hudson Valley office for Wagner Hodgson Landscape Architect, which is based in Burlington, Vermont, but now also with an office in Hudson, New York. And Jamie is bringing those big city skills to big-time Pleasantville, so a really good night. So I just want to set in context a few things. Tonight, the real purpose of our discussion is to talk about what might happen at the end of Memorial Plaza by the war monuments. But I wanted to set a little bit in context how this all came about and also how we got where we are in terms of the physical form of the community. So back up to the context, 7, 8, 9 years ago, we had a federal grant that assisted us in hiring a couple of design firms to assist us in thinking about streetscape improvements, and have had stapled in the corner a set of plans for streetscape improvements both along Manville Road and on Bedford that have been sitting there wanting to be funded, and thus far we haven't uncorked the money to do it. This year, we were fortunate for the first time in recorded history of scoring a New York State grant. It's actually federal money that is distributed by New York State of a little more than $1.5 million for the Manville Road improvements, which start at Grant Street and Memorial Plaza by Valvoline and the Burns Media Lab and work their way up over the bridge, past the Burns Film Center, and up to Tompkins Avenue. So I'll show you just quickly what that looks like. That's not really the core subject for us tonight. We're mostly talking about Memorial Plaza. More on the rest of that later, but we'll set it in context. But I just wanted to buzz through a few slides to remind you of where we all are. I don't need to remind all of us that we live in this place that has an incredible range of virtues. Better off, isn't it? Yeah. All right. Great housing, a 9-hole country club, lakes, ponds, Westchester's best farm market, a downtown that has maintained some sense of place with relatively few vacancies, independent stores, now the New York U.S. headquarters for Henkel's and their demonstration kitchen, Pace University nearby, the entire life's work of Gordon Parks, famous photographer, right there on Wheeler Avenue, Burns Film Center, Media Arts Lab, incredible stuff. Add that to the fact that that ring shows a rough, easy walking radius to the yellow circle downtown and the blue dot, which is Memorial Plaza. All of these things have made this place called Pleasantville a place that all of us have been proud to live, and a place that has drawn lots of new people who are attracted to the same virtues that brought us here to begin with. That said, we end up, as we'll talk shortly, with a sort of an odd situation here, with the war monuments in what is essentially a traffic island and pedestrian conditions extremely difficult. Some of this is worth pointing out is the product of the change in the railroad. This is an image from the 1940s where steam locomotives came through Pleasantville. And whoops, I went too fast there. Back up. So what you see there on the right-hand side is the train station and an L that was attached to the train station. That's the view from the other side. So the trains came through downtown Pleasantville at grade. This is the building 42 Wheeler, which is still there around the corner, Pleasantville Pizza. This area here is the Pocket Park between Pleasantville Pizza and what is now Pub Street. When the train cut was made, they chopped the L off the train station and moved it over a little bit in order to create space. So this is the view if you stood just past the parking lot behind the bookstore and Dunkin' Donuts and looked south. Again, this here is Manville Road, which was at grade, and you can just see here the train station, which is essentially in the same place but got moved a little bit. In the late 50s, this is what Bedford Road looked like. You came down Bedford Road. This is the building that has Chase Manhattan Bank in it. This is the building that has Lucy's in it. This is our parking lot, that building now gone. This is the little gatehouse for the person who came out and put these gates down when a train came through. So the amazing thing here is that Bedford Road dove down in a relatively steep hill. 1959, 60, 61, all that changed. And there's the after picture, which is essentially the situation we have right now, where instead of Bedford Road going down, it goes up across the bridge that crossed the tracks. That entailed burying the lower parts of these buildings, and amazingly, something like 8 feet of Village Hall, which was once visible from the street, is no longer. But the result of that is, here's the view looking from Bedford Road up towards Manville before the change happened, and there's the view after it happened. So this was the view when the train cut was first completed. Right now we have trees in this location. Of course, the parking situation has changed a bit, but this was all new, and this is the overpass for the train, all of which got built in around about 1960. So the result of that is we ended up with this condition right here, and Phil and Jamie can lead you through more detail there, but that produced this situation where we have, here's this grassy median, and we have this elbow coming out of the parking lot that goes up over the bridge, formerly all at grade. Getting across the tracks, it turns out, has been a problem since the beginning. In the course of hunting for some of these pictures, I encountered this history of Pleasantville, and when the railroad was first built, they needed the land of a farmer who sold them some pasture land, but required that they build a tunnel under the tracks so he could get his cows from one side to the other. So maybe we should restore that, and we can all use it. So don't want to spend a lot of time on this, and it's a very hard slide to look at, but these are the two drawings that were done for the Manville Road street improvements. Again, there's all kinds of other stuff on here that makes it hard to look at, but this is that elbow that comes out of the commuter side. Here are the war monuments, and what's proposed here is to substantially improve the pedestrian conditions by closing this elbow so that the sidewalk would continue straight across. And then when you get up here, again, a very difficult slide to look at. This is the match line from the previous drawing. Now we're at the Tompkins Avenue, Manville Road, Burns Film Center, about here facing Washington Avenue. Over here is Wheeler. We bump out the sidewalks in this proposed plan, add a planted median, and substantially improve, I think, the pedestrian conditions. There's been lots of discussion about whether the details of that are right, wrong, indifferent, and we'll be looking at all of that as part of this process, but not really the primary subject for tonight. We'll put all these images up on the web, and you can peruse them at your will, but really the subject for tonight, and I leave it to Phil and Jamie, is to talk about how we take the opportunity to create a civic space at the War Monument end of the plaza and turn that area into a place that actually lives up to what we I think in our mind's eye wish it to be, which is our equivalent of a village center, a sort of magnetic place of pride with lots of opportunities for people to do things, to hang out, potentially to program activities. That's the subject that Phil and then Jamie will lead us through. So I turn it over to them.
Hi. Thank you, Mayor. Again, my name is Jamie Maslin Larson. I am a landscape architect, and I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm probably the only one in the room that isn't from here, so that can provide a different point of view. Yeah. So just be aware that just a tiny bit about Phil and I. We've known each other for a long time. We've worked together. This is our first collaboration. This is really great because we both kind of come at public space projects from complementary points of view. I'm a designer and Phil is a planner. So Phil also is really good at sorting through priorities and ideas from the community. And then what I do is generally sort of try to take those ideas from the community and see how they can be translated into an actual design. I mean, we both kind of are good at working in both areas, but we have a little strength on both of those forces. So what Phil and I both kind of really believe passionately in is the design of the public realm. And the public realm isn't a word that we use in our everyday language, but it's really the space between all the buildings that all civic life happens. So when it's designed well, you really feel a sense of pleasure in being out in the streets. You might have a lot of more activity with people walking around. You might have outdoor cafes. People know when there's a celebration where to go to town. You know, people flock to these public spaces because they know that's where there's a place to celebrate or a place to to debate and protest ideas. And this is happening, of course, on cities, not just large scale, but they're really important to have high quality and legible and accessible public spaces in communities of every size. Just an example, this one's kind of like a major transformation, but when we start showing you images of the project area as it exists today, it's kind of hard to imagine what it could look like. Right? Unless you're like somebody like me that like looks at this stuff all the time and is a part of a process of seeing places transformed, it's not always easy to see what's possible. But this is an example of a project I did in Governor's Island, worked on that for 8 years to get that built. This is just one piece of the project where there was this parking lot, vacant kind of looking building, and really just sort of had no atmosphere. Who would want to be here, right? Nobody. I don't know, I guess. So in this case, this is a multi-year redevelopment project. So the public space was coming long before all these buildings were opened for new uses. And we created a plaza and flexible open space area that could be used while this place was going into while the buildings were in transition. And what was really important to us as designers is that that these public spaces are inviting and relaxing and casual every day, but then really do the work that they need to do to support events and activities, whether on weekends, weeknights, during all seasons. So where Phil and I come together on this project is really definitely seeing an opportunity at this, the center point of the village. A little bit of overlap with the mayor, but just to kind of put a different visual on the location of the project area. The study that was done previously, which the mayor showed, is really composed of kind of two pieces. One, other public streetscape improvements from Wheeler to Tompkins, and then the plaza area, which goes from Wheeler down to Memorial Plaza. And of course, we're going to focus on the plaza area in the orangish color. Just to give you a little update, this is the odd plan view technical drawing of existing conditions prepared by our civil engineer. And then just an image of the streetscape improvements that will happen between Wheeler to Tompkins. So you're going to have bump outs at the intersections, street trees, a planted median. It's just going to feel much more friendly. You'll have safer crossings at every intersection, and other improvements like benches and trees and lighting to make it just more lovely to be in. This is the existing condition from the area from Memorial Plaza to Wheeler. Basically it's a vast black hole of vehicle-dominated spaces. But what showed up as an opportunity was to remove the turning lane and really consolidate and create an open place in the middle of this traffic-oriented area so that it becomes a new civic space. When I first was introduced to Pleasantville, a community member mentioned this idea of that Pleasantville is, this. I was asking, what's the really special qualities of Pleasantville? What makes Pleasantville completely different? And it was described to me as a 21st century village. And I think I immediately, I thought of, as the mayor mentioned, I worked for a Dutch company for 8 years, and I used to travel to Europe quite frequently. And it really had this vibe that is really of a lovely scale and a lovely texture. Actually, the core village is an easy 5 to 10 minute walk. And within that core is a really rich mix of public spaces, like public uses like this, and the post office and Metro North, a ton of retail, restaurants, shopping, and of course the film center and other attractions that are coming up. And this is really sort of in the core, in the heart of the village. It's also at this crossroads. So this is what makes public spaces more meaningful, is that people naturally cross through and wind their way through the village, making a kind of natural destination that doesn't need a lot of, we don't need to plop a Ferris wheel here to make people come, right? It's really a part of the everyday experience of people walking through this community. This is an aerial view looking down on the site. And currently, as the mayor mentioned, there's these just chopped up places along the fringes that really don't create a kind of mental map. You just see them as fringe, and it's not really a landscape, and it's really not a place that anybody would feel comfortable hanging out. And it's completely dominated by vehicles. So it really feels unsafe at times, especially in that turning lane. Just the eye level conditions. This is, of course, looking towards the crossover. This is your first impression when you get out of the Metro North station and are heading west. You have the beautiful mountains, or hills, I guess, behind, which is quite a lovely green backdrop. But then, everything in the foreground, it just says, get out of here. You can barely even see the memorial, and I think this is really, it just doesn't do a service to that. You definitely have the feeling that cars rule. There are a couple of benches, but it's hardly a place where you'd want to stay little more than 5 to 10 minutes. And this is the traffic island that the war monument sets on, and I think we can do better. I'm optimistic, but that's why we want to hear from you tonight. We think that there's lots of ways that this space could be integrated into the day-to-day life and bring in some very special moments throughout the year. And Phil will go into much more detail right now.
Thanks, Jamie. So, one of the really exciting things about this project is that it's an opportunity for you all to help us figure out, well, what is the opportunity? What could happen in this space? What can we put here? What can we plan and design for this space that would make it something that's really beloved by the community? That's a place that you would use, that it's a public space that would be meaningful to you and fun and enjoyable. And tonight, we're really going to start that process. And tonight should be engaging and fun, just like we think this space should be engaging and fun. If you think about what's special about Pleasantville, what are some of the unique characteristics, it would be very helpful, in fact, for you to start doing that and start the thinking process, because pretty soon we're going to turn on the lights and everybody's going to get to work at your table and talk to each other about, well, what is it that's great about Pleasantville, and what are some of the things that maybe are missing, like the kinds of experiences that would make this even more of a unique village that's unlike other experiences in the region. And so I'm going to give you a little exercise that's going to help you walk through that brainstorming process. And I want you to think about, what's Pleasantville? I want you to focus on uses and activities, because we're really not going to move into design tonight. We're going to use the ideas around activities that would draw you to this place at this point, and we're going to use those to get into design in the next few weeks. And I want you to think about who uses downtown. It's not only the folks who live in the downtown who might walk down to the Pony Express or to any of the Wheeler Avenue attractions and shops, but there are commuters that come through there every day, right? And there are lots of visitors who come to the Burns, and they need to discover the rest of our village, right? We have all of these people who come into downtown, and they see a show, and then what do they do afterward? They might, hopefully they catch dinner sometimes, but a lot of the times they may just sort of wander back to their car not knowing what the other attractions are in this little village. So I want you to think also about the other users there are future residents. As some of you know, there are going to be more people living downtown. There are some new projects that are going to bring people who want to live in a downtown, in a walkable, compact community by a train station. This is a great setup. It's we really have a very attractive downtown situation that other communities would wish to have, this compact form with transit. So, and think about kids. Honestly, I may be biased. I mean, I have a son, 11, and a daughter, 12. And there is just a constant, I'm going downtown. I'll get a call, I'll get a text, I'm going downtown, Dad. And it's great. And it's why we moved here. We wanted to be in that kind of a place. But these kids are using our downtown. And they're hanging out in, they're going to the Pony Express, they're going to the library, they're hanging out in parking lots, they're going to the bike shop. They're doing all the kid stuff that we all did, and it's great that we live in a place where that can happen. But let's think about their whole experience of downtown as well. So I'm going to quickly go through some brainstorming slides to get your juices flowing. We're going to look at some pictures. The hallmarks I want to focus on of successful public spaces are the ones I'm about to go through. So first, everyday uses. So the idea being that there doesn't have to be a scheduled event there. to draw you down there. There's the promise of, any day that's nice. If you went down there, you could name, 2 or 3 things that you'd be able to do there predictably. That's always going on at different times for groups, for individuals. So it can be as simple as places to sit and, really comfortable, attractive settings like these. But what I find, honestly, usually is that for those chairs to be filled, you will typically need to program some busier activities to really to generate the traffic to draw people down there. So a few chairs is not usually enough. So here's some ideas that we've stolen from other communities and projects. On the upper left, there's this whole trend around the country for mini free libraries. So it's just a simple idea. It can look like anything. It could be simple, made out of wood, but here's a more high-tech one. But the idea is people have books that they're looking to get rid of. This is a place you could swap them. You could put them in there, and you can take one for free. You can give and take to the library. Many of you may have seen this idea of a piano that's just there, and we probably need to cover it with some kind of a roof so that it can withstand the weather. But the idea is that anybody could sit down and play it. Okay, it's a neat idea. One of the neatest ideas, I think, because we're attracting people. We're trying to attract people to a place where today they don't go. Right, this is the other side of the train station, and over time it'll get more busy around that side. But if we had one of those little swap shops like they have in Chappaqua at their train station, that might be one of those reasons to go down there, so that you can always, get rid of that stuff in your attic and take it somewhere, and meanwhile go down there and see what else there is. There's a flower shop nearby. Maybe another good idea for commuters coming out of the train station is to have a more convenient, prominent flower kiosk. I'll go more quickly. Games are really great to put out there, unexpected. You can get these amazing outdoor games today that didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago. And of course, we've got one of the world's greatest table tennis clubs right here in Pleasantville. So maybe that's an idea. Maybe we should go talk to those folks. The kids, we don't want to turn this into a great big playground, but we do want to think about, kids love to jump and climb. It's just how they're made. In fact, you can see a kid right here jumping and climbing on what's out there today, which is the bike shelter. Okay, so happens to be someone who's related to me. But it gives you a clue that there's an unmet demand, and you don't have to take up a lot of space. You can do it attractively. This is a great example in Aspen where they have this really nice looking boulder that if there's no kid on it, it doesn't bother anybody that's there. It actually looks really cool. And this is an example on the west side of a really miniature, simple water feature that only is activated when you push a button. So it's not always going. It's not wasting water when there's no kid there. You push the button and it runs 5 minutes, and then it's over. And meanwhile, you can use that paved space for anything else. Here's the idea of a program that could be run by the recreation department. A couple days a week, they might just pull up, unload some jumps. The kids can predict when that happens. You have a schedule, and it's something we don't have. Other ideas could be, let's look at more, green space ideas, spaces with more grass. This is the renovated Washington Square Park with the mounds where, those used to be the asphalt mounds, and now they're beautiful grass mounds with climbing features for kids. Lawns, the idea of herb gardens as a part of the design. There's maybe an interest in a volunteer association that would grow herbs. Or maybe we should think about the birds. You see a lot of interesting sort of artistic installations around birdhouses. Maybe we want to talk about environmental uses. So those are sort of the small scale stuff. What about a more central feature? Because that's another possibility that would really redefine the space and give people a reason to go there. Something that anchors activity and makes it memorable. For example, you'll see this. You see this more and more around the country. They're very popular, and there's almost no expense to create a food truck court. So outdoor food and drink, when it works, when the weather's right, on a schedule, when there's going to be customers there. And I certainly know there are, again, lots of people who are looking for quick, inexpensive bite to eat in downtown. And food truck gives you a lot of flexibility to pick one that's, creates its own special niche. There's the Sacramento, California, they have a weekly event where they combine food trucks with cinema. So they have this portable screen, and you see these more and more. Maybe, there's a lot of portable ice rinks nowadays. There's even the kind that you can put in your own backyard and flood, and you can be pretty simple with it. It would need the right area that works for design, that's cleared and flat. But you can imagine how popular that would be selling cocoa for the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts. And in this example, it's volunteers that set it up every winter and take it down. Or in the summertime, maybe it's not outlandish to set up a small beach. I don't know. It's been done in other communities of different scales. It's an exciting opportunity to be sort of ahead of the curve, a little bit cutting edge image for the town, and a fun place to go. You can certainly imagine people saying, hey, I'll meet you at the beach. That always sounds good. And then the next category that we want to think about is amenities. And I mean more than a park bench. I mean really much more than just the typical catalog seating, but something that really makes you feel comfortable and really is, evokes this response that we all have as humans when we see that comfy, cozy place. A lot of it has to do with the design and the provision of the right amenities, whether it's really nicely designed seating with gardens and shade, even a fire pit. We'll have to check the local laws on that one, but don't hold back writing down ideas that are daring in tonight's meeting. Hammocks, swings, all kinds of fun stuff that we think really promotes Pleasantville, promotes the idea of it being unique and not just any old town. And then finally, my last category is this, then how do you manage it? How do you program it? Of course, we've got the world's greatest farmers market in this space already. And so that's a great start. It's more than a great start. What other events and programs could go on in a small space like this? If we can do farmers markets, should we be doing flea markets or book markets? This is over in Kent, Connecticut. In Toronto, they have this little neighborhood park where they tried several things, and then the thing that really took hold and became the most popular idea was a pizza oven. They built a traditional Portuguese pizza oven, and they have 2 weekly events, I think Wednesday nights and Saturday afternoons, where people bring down the ingredients, they make the dough, the kids are getting involved there, they're making their own pizzas, and they've fired up the oven, and it's a whole community event. And it's also rentable by groups who just want to do their own private pizza party. You can certainly imagine a small area for concerts, which are already happening down there. Here's another image of what you can do with screens today. That's an inflatable screen that can be purchased. Is there a Dancing Under the Stars going on in Pleasantville? Not to my knowledge. There's a lot of opportunities here to do the kinds of things that I think folks would really, really enjoy, that brings the community together. Maybe it's having a giant table that anybody can use, but also the restaurants can do special pop-up meals and invite people, or that could be rented. That just the kind of atmosphere that I think would be really, or maybe it's giant inflatable bunnies. So the point is, tonight we really want to get out of the box. We don't want to just think about, okay, we're going to have a little green space park. with a flagpole. We want you to be a little bit more, think a little bit beyond that about the fun and unique stuff that is Pleasantville that would bring you downtown and to meet me downtown and all of your neighbors. So we're going to hit the lights, bring the lights back up. And the folks who are facing the screen, now's the time when you can turn back around and face your table. Anybody in the back should, at this point, find a spot at one of the tables, okay? So I'll run through the instructions that are actually printed on your agenda for clarity. Yeah.
One of the things I'm having trouble is getting the scale of the space.
Right.
It's the same thing. It seems so small.
Jamie, you want to talk about the scale of the space real quick?
Well, the scale of the space isn't quite set yet. You saw on the, I'll flip back to the aerial. So this area, right about in here, is about, like taking from this point to this point is about 12,000 square feet. Does that mean anything to you? Probably
No,
not.
just sort
But
of give us a
then-
visual space of where
in
you
this-
see it starting, where you see it.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what we're here for is
It's at
what
least this.
activities and what events and
But it
what
could get bigger.
ideas- Pardon me?
Well, I was just sorry. With the laser, it's easy to just draw the rectangle. It's at least that, right?
Yeah.
And some
But
of that is going to have to evolve a bit. Obviously, our goal is not to lose parking spaces wherever possible, although we're inevitably going to lose some here, but also to rethink the circulation in Memorial Plaza, which at the moment is also in flux, whether Memorial Plaza goes into two-way, whatever. I don't think we should get hung up on that, other than to say that, correct me if you see it differently, the sort of biggest possible piece could be all the way to the crosswalk. The smallest possible piece would be half that,
Yeah, I'd say that.
right?
Yeah, and part of what we're here to figure out is
But also
what
trying to
is-
figure it out, you got to kind of have a sense of how much space you get to work with, you know?
Well, and if
It
this
could go
group
both
came,
ways.
if this
Yeah,
group
I
got
mean,
visionary, and gave us directions like, there's a huge opportunity. We should be able to do this, this, and this. We need it in our downtown, and that's what we want. Then that would help us understand how big it needs to be, also. So it can work both directions.
I understand the chicken and egg, but generally speaking, it's about this size. And then what I would encourage you, because even though I'm constantly working with drawings and making spaces, you really have to go down there and sort of like walk around to really see the extent of the space. It's going to be a small, relatively speaking, a smallish public space, but what we're trying to do is make it so flexible and usable that it really feels bigger than it is. And to be honest with you, it's not like we're going to have football games here, so there's a lot you can fit into a smallish site, so we're pretty optimistic.
Just for reference, 12,000 square feet is about a quarter acre. So if you want to picture some of the lots, you may know the
Yeah.
size of your lot. It's about 0.25 acres. It's 12,000 square feet, right?
Yep.
And
Right.
is decking over Metro North, is that definitely out?
So it's only money. And
We
lots
have a
of
lot
it.
of it right now, though, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, decking over Metro North, either all or part of the section between between Manville and the train overpass is doable, but all on us. Certainly, it's not something Metro North would participate in financially, and I think it's fair to say it's some millions of dollars. So that's not on the radar screen at the moment. Never say never, but I think we can't let the great be the enemy of the good here. I don't see that as a realistic thing for us at the moment.
It's phase two.
Definitely not short term.
Is moving the Memorial's possible, or, I mean, to eliminate the slip lane, you're gonna have to have a turning lane out of, the straight, you
I
know.
mean, what
off
was
the street.
anticipated in the old plan, and all of that's up for grabs, was moving the retaining wall a little bit that is opposite the side of Valvoline to create a right turn lane without moving the war monuments.
So you can fit in a
That's
right
what it
turn
appears.
lane there without
It
moving.
appears
the
that a right
wall.
turn lane would fit. It appears, I mean, according to the engineers, and I've seen the drawings, they can fit on leaving the monuments alone, we'd be able to fit in a right turn lane. You'd have to cut a little bit and improve a retaining wall on that side of the monument, but there's room there for a right turn lane. So what we have now so far is leaving the monuments in place. But again, it's all open, but, and as Peter said, it's all money too, moving those monuments.
Yeah, I think
guess
moving the
probably
monuments
expensive.
is a pretty heavy lift. both
So
literally and
as we
figuratively.
spitball though, should we consider it just like a blank slate in
Yeah.
that area?
Yeah, I think
Thanks.
that, I mean, anything's on the table. Let's not limit ourselves at this stage. So, you know, I think that this part of what we'll do is come the next time and say, here's how we sorted the things we heard from you and the trade-offs, you know, some of those options as they hit the ground. So, for instance, like if everybody says we absolutely have to have a large enough space for an ice skating rink, we might show you an option where that actually, you know, you see the impact of that, which means maybe in one option the monuments do move. You know, but then there's other options where it might be integrated. So I think we need to understand what your priorities and ideas are so that we can kind of sketch some options and bring them back to you for your input.
So
Yes,
if
ma'am.
I understand, there's gonna be several options in that space, so there'll be nothing permanent, is that correct?
Well,
Everything is gonna
we
be
are going to
movable?
build a permanent improvement to this space. Yes, it'll be permanent. What will happen, that's coming now and again occasionally, will be these activities and programming. So the farmer's market, it only happens Saturdays currently, I think. So maybe then on Wednesday nights, there's, you know, this community
Right.
dinner
But
event.
supposing there's several things going on, supposing there's a yoga class and an art class,
Uh-huh.
and there's something else. So will there be movable dividers so that several functions can go on at once?
I mean, there's really, I think part of what we need to, again, like, there's only gonna be so much you can do in this space,
No, I
given,
understand, that's why
yeah.
I'm asking about movable.
But you can certainly
Figure out, do we want a flexible space?
you can certainly you can have a schedule for those things to share the space. So I don't think that would be a problem. So listen, folks, we're gonna
for management and program
let's jump in. I'm gonna give you your instructions, and then the room should get really loud for a few minutes while you guys all talk. So the number one step is to pick both a recorder and a reporter. So a volunteer to write with a magic marker. That's your recorder, who's going to just sort of take your notes for you. And the reporter at the end of the next half hour will stand up and hold up your sheet of paper with the all marked up, and just kind of talk into the mic and say in 5 minutes, you know, this is what our group thought. This is our summary. So, you know, that'll be the first step. And then I want you to just share those photos that I just passed out. And everybody take a sheet of the blank paper and write down the 6 or 8 of your favorite photos. Write down the numbers, okay? And when you leave, by the way, I just want you to leave those pieces of paper on the table because we'll tally those. So, you know, think to yourself first. You make your own list of favorites. And then I want you to start talking as a group, and I want the recorder to go around and collect the top 3 of everyone's and write it down on your big sheet of paper with a marker, okay? And then do that, and then I'll come back and give you the rest of the directions. But get started. Pick your recorder and your reporter, pass the photos around. Everybody take a piece of paper and think about your favorite images.
So right now, we're supposed to write down.
Hi there. Can you guys hear me? Is this thing on?
It's not. Pretend it's not. You have to shout.
Okay. Hi. Now, we had some fun putting our list together, and we felt strongly about a few things. And some of these I won't go over because they're sort of sub items of the larger ideas that we had. We felt strongly about making the space into a mixed-use area for people who wanted to do work outside. We really thought it'd be good to have Wi-Fi available so people could just set up their laptop, their iPad, whatever, get something done. Teenagers would like that too, and it would present opportunities for them to hang out in the daytime and maybe early evening. And one thing we were concerned about was safety, because if we're going to have cars going right nearby, we didn't like the idea of somebody potentially, and I hate to say this, intentionally using a vehicle against a really nice communal area. So what occurred to us in light of the fact that this is a limited space, and also with the concern about safety, was just to get rid of the entire parking lot and to use a multi-level parking lot instead and have the whole space for our community, okay?
Very small idea.
That's thinking big.
Well, when you get to dream, you may as well go for it. Okay, so we want to involve and promote local businesses. So if we have kiosks for restaurants or other venues in town, we want to make sure that they get the first shot at it, and it strengthens them rather than weakening them by taking business away. Let's see. I think that pretty much covers our big dreams. We'd like to have some areas for, a little area for small theater productions, maybe some bands could play there. I thought maybe a little art show, outdoor art show, something that's versatile, things that could be taken down and put back up. And if possible, last little dream, having something that could be used for a 3-season opportunity so that if it is spring or fall, we can still hang out outside a little bit as a community rather than just all living inside our homes all the time, apart from the library and very little else that we have to meet as a community.
That's great. Were there any areas of disagreement, or was everybody sort of on board with the same kind of ideas?
We were able to find creative solutions to that. Like, I didn't like the big, long table, but when we said, well, let's make a big, long table that's actually modular, that can be pulled apart for, different uses, then we were fine. That was like the only little disagreement.
Okay, excellent. Any reactions or comments from the crowd? Excellent. All right, thank you guys. Folks, are you ready? You want to come up and do the same? And then we're going to go this way. Better to get it over with.
We can all go, because we had a really, we had a really small group. We started by looking at the pictures, and we found that we were all kind of gravitating towards very similar ideas, especially around multi-purpose, flexible seating and flexible space. And as we talked about that, we said what we liked about it was the landscaping, the green space. We were pretty familiar from our work with the farmers market about how much noise there is on Manville Road. It's a steep hill, trucks and buses often going up and down that hill. They use air brakes coming down, they rev their engines going up. And so while we liked a lot of the ideas in the images, some of the things that would really require a lot of quiet, we had a harder time thinking about unless there was some kind of a sound buffer So we talked about sound buffer. We also had the Wi-Fi idea. We liked, I think a lot of our images were about people sitting there, nice tables, the comfortable chairs. We like the idea of something fun, a little levity, whether it's the ping pong tables or the water park idea, something that a water feature, which could also help with the sound if there was, if there was a fountain that had some ambient noise that would help offset the noise of Manville Road. And then we hear all the time, and again from our farmers market work, we got to have restrooms, public restrooms in the area. It's a really big burden on the businesses there that we have over 3,000 people coming to the market, and maybe we'll have more people coming to all of these things, that there are no public restrooms downtown, and that's a really big burden for the diner and the Starbucks.
And currently, there's no water that runs out to the plaza, so of course that would involve that as
Right.
well.
Yeah, we'd like water, please.
Water for the market would be a very useful thing to have.
Absolutely.
I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we also wanted a bigger space. We weren't as bold as you, although I love your idea of taking the whole parking lot, but of expanding it, possibly getting rid of the green strip further down and using that for parking spaces so that we could come down more.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Excellent. Any questions for this group? You're all involved with the market, is that right?
Not me.
That's
Stuart
true.
and I.
The two of you. Okay.
Mhm.
Thanks for that market every Saturday. It's the best thing out there. Okay. Next group.
Okay. Yes, I'm about to say.
Are you going next?
So we just have a half a thing here. So I'll start mostly at the bottom. We kind of agreed about the space, the bigger the better. But, again, we didn't dare to ask for the whole Memorial Plaza, but that would be great. Some people like that. We like the idea, since it probably has to be a lot smaller, to make it flexible. So a lot of our things, like if you had long games, the space could be flexible. It could be used for a band or a movie later. Some people wanted comfortable benches and shade. Again, that could be flexible. You could use it for something else later. We like some of the colorful and quirky pictures. A lot of the pictures we liked were hard surfaces with greenery, because it's such a small space. It's going to be used a lot. It can't be grass that gets destroyed. And then we said we want to have the ability to expand into the parking lot, so make it sort of integrate the two of them, so that maybe if you did do food trucks or if you did do a movie, this new park building could be the extra space that make the parking lot, even more flexible and usable for events.
That's a great idea.
So we wrote down, everybody wrote down what their top 3 or 4 or 5, and the common theme was sitting. There's no place to sit right now. There's like one bench in the hot sun, and it's very unpleasant. So to have some tables and chairs, to have some comfortable sitting, you have several images with the sitting. And, we have a lot of coffee shops and food places, so to come and be able to sit down would be nice, and the Wi-Fi is a great idea. We also really like the idea of creative climbing and games, and that would be attractive for both adults and children, and older teenagers and young children.
It's like an interesting space, park not just for kids, but also so
like the bocce.
Grown-ups can have fun there too.
Right. You have the long strip of grass between the parking lot and the tracks, so you could put a bocce court along there, or a chess game along, the big giant chess game. And then just creative green space. Of course you can't, somebody, as you just said with the grass, you can't necessarily have grass on because of the number of people, but you can have very creative use of green, shrubs and planters, the herbs, the herb garden, that kind of thing, art.
Also bringing art in.
Bring some movable art.
We liked a lot of the pictures with the different, the bunnies and the globes and stuff.
Number 47 is the art globes, and you can have that kind of thing, and then some border, some green border to separate the space from, which is really important.
Just for a buffer.
Buffer in, an attractive buffer, but a necessary buffer to just keep
We
it
also
more
got into the
attractive.
conversation, didn't come up in the pictures, but, you know, there's a lot of car traffic in the center of town. And for a parent with young kids, you don't feel safe walking around with them. So there is that concern of whatever area we create to have a legitimate safety buffer between that and traffic, and feeling like, you know, you can kind of let your kids go and have a good time and not worry that they're going to run out into the street or.
And it
you know.
also makes it more of a sanctuary, you know,
Yeah,
you think
you can
of a nice,
relax.
quiet space. So those were our,
What was this one? Border? Yeah, border.
the border
green
around the
tables.
thing.
Yep.
The creative green space for art.
Just like to add, you bring up a good point. If you create a park, which is an island, how do you get to it? You can't park near there. So you need to have safe access from all sides.
Right.
From across Manville, from across
Right.
Marble, from
Well, that's what they're gonna figure out.
It's very central.
We're just listing everything, and you're gonna figure it all out.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get to talk about it, but now that you talk about that, like, Pleasantville has a lot of great qualities, but biking in town is not one of them.
Right.
And, you know, kids love to ride their bikes. It would be great to be able to get kids to be able to get to this place on their
Right.
bikes without taking their lives into
But the
their.
sitting, like even the gazebo doesn't have any sitting seats. There's like no place to sit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if there was a bench in there, you might sit down, right?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We were for movie monuments.
Okay, all right. Next table. Let's go.
You can do the talking.
Okay. So we were bold enough to ask to take back the whole area, to do it in phases, do it slowly, but certainly we would love to see, as parking develops around the village, that the green space increases over time. And flexibility was a big theme, we thought. Some covered space, so you're protected from the sun on the hot days, and also from a rain. If it's a little rainy day, drizzly day, you have some place to go and still sit and enjoy the area. We'd love to see a water feature, especially for the kids, and a mini amphitheater area surrounding it. And certainly the musicians can use that during the farmers market and other times. Climbing features, perhaps even a train, since we're along the train station, like Harrison has a great train park. Have a little train there for, especially for the younger kids, to actually be in. And a climbing wall. Some of the climbing walls now we were discussing, they don't have to be that high. They're more of a treadmill climbing wall where the wall keeps coming down. So you never go higher than 10 feet, but you're always, you know, climbing. So things like that. An artistic, this was a great idea, artistic use of the west wall at the train level, perhaps with plantings going down. Or a mural or some lighting, but something so that when you get off of the train, when you're standing down below at the train station, you're actually being welcomed to Pleasantville with some type of art down there. Game tables that can be used for the games, but also if you want to sit and have lunch, you can sit at the game tables. Combinations of permanent seating and also some movable seating, so as different groups develop, you're able to move around. Very festive lighting, but that's also bright and safe. Food trucks, food Fridays, local vendors being able to come out. Trees, lots of trees, plantings, an herb garden that would be open to the community for use. And also a fire pit we thought was a great idea because that increases the late spring or early spring use and late fall use, so it makes it more of a year-round park. So they were.
But it also could be flexible. I think one of the things that we also
Right.
talked about was that the space is so small. You know, we did bring up reclaiming the entire parking lot, but thought it might be unrealistic at the get-go. So the idea of having a completely flexible space so that it can be completely always changing.
Right, you can roll stuff
Yeah.
out. And roll
Right.
stuff in. Yeah.
Right. That was us.
Excellent. Thank you. Good job.
Who wants to go next? Folks in the back? After these folks, is there anybody at the table in the corner? Anybody else? Okay.
It's not easy being last.
Second to last.
Oh, we're second to last.
Penultimate.
All right. So I think we covered, had a lot of similar ideas as some of the other groups. Yeah.
Thinking outside the box.
So in no particular order, we agreed that it would be really useful to have some decent Wi-Fi service in town, because there really isn't anything like that. We really like the idea of a water feature, primarily for the sound blocking properties it might have. We'd like to potentially have periodic closing off of roads for pedestrian space to expand the central area.
So wait, how would that work? You close?
We were thinking, I mean, it was something like the way that you do it, they have in Times Square now, where they have like, it's a road, but sometimes they block it off and they set up tables and, and chairs.
That's part of it, and then a transitional zone,
yeah.
so that maybe if you change the asphalt of the parking lot or part of the parking lot to a different material that's more friendly and lends itself to use for the park, you can expand the park area when you, when it's available, and you can expand the parking back over it, but it's, you're not sitting on
Similar
black
to this
asphalt.
other group. Was it you?
Yeah.
Got that, yeah, great idea.
Like a flex zone between the permanent parking and the permanent, the green space.
Then we wanted to have as much green space, green and shade as possible to make the place more inviting, particularly in the hotter summer months. And then we had a bunch of ideas for like activities that could happen there, including summer concerts, outdoor movies, outdoor markets beyond what we have for the farmers market, but something that could happen at other times or at night markets, winter or holiday markets. And then I think the last notion is to replace the gazebo with something actually useful that people will use. So.
Do you guys have any ideas for lighting for night markets and things like that? Any lighting ideas?
Maybe hanging lighting?
I like those string.
Yeah, like the strings.
of
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm
that were in
talking
one of the
about. Yeah.
pictures. It's really nice. Do we have anything else on here?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about as a holiday market. Yeah.
Outdoor
Yeah.
markets, night markets. Okay.
Any other comments? Great job. All right, final group.
Okay, so a lot of it's been said already, but when we were talking, we really liked the idea of the food truck coming in, as long as it didn't take away from what was already happening in town, coffee shops and things. We really like this idea of this combination of seating and green space. We were thinking about like the High Line and Ryan Park and the things that are going in there are more flexible. We like the idea of having things coming in like movies and events and music. The kids really like the beach and the bunnies, but we just put that separately. And but this whole idea of having something temporary like the ping pong and the jumps for the kids, the books swap, and just a venue for music. So this is pretty much what we came up with. I don't know if you want to add anything else.
There's been a lot of activity in our table.
Just get back to us tomorrow, Lane.
Yeah. So listen, folks. The idea in the next steps is still these ideas. Go through all your papers, which you should leave behind on the table because we will tally it all up and type up your notes. And then we'll come up with a draft program, which is basically a description of all the uses that would be going on in this space. And Jamie will start to drop some options for how to fit, conceptually, at a conceptual level, those uses into a space. She'll start to draw diagrams and that kind of thing. And the idea is that we would be back here in about a month and showing you some of the, the next iteration of your ideas so that we can stay on schedule. We have a pretty tight schedule, so this will actually really move along. And I believe we've selected a date for the second workshop, which is December 7th.
Yeah, it's right there. It's Thursday, December 7th. Patty? That's fine. Okay, great.
We
At the Clinton Street Senior Center, 7 p.m., December 7th. Questions? Yeah.
What I'm very happy about, it sounds like everybody's pretty much on the same page, which I think is.
It's a good start in terms of that, yeah.
And one of those things, and my big issue in bringing up obviously is everyone would like to see it bigger. And what I'm hearing from the beginning is, right now you don't know how big it's going to be. What's going to be the deciding factor on that? Like when will you know how big it? Because I'm sure the only reason we don't go as big as we can is because of parking. So what's going to change?
Well, so part of the challenge is going to say, okay, if let's say we allowed it to be all the way to the crosswalk at the overpass on the train, how many spaces would we lose, and what are the implications for the traffic of cars within Memorial Plaza? I mean, as all of you know, at peak times in the evening, you end up with cars queuing in the aisle waiting for somebody to get off the train. Creates a different kind of problem. So there are a whole bunch of things to be grappled with. But I think we're of the view that we could afford to lose some spaces for the greater good, and hopefully could replicate those in places nearby so that we might be able to restore most of our supply. Bunch of things going on, including the likelihood, I think, that the building on the rock next to the post office will be the subject of a development proposal. That building has recently changed hands. And I think it's likely to involve taking the rock down and then creating an opportunity there. So lots to talk about. The access that heads back down that alley towards Key Food, the Lane Plumbing lot, as we call it, behind the post office, which the village now owns, which could conceivably become a site for more parking, potentially involving some parking structure. So there are a lot of variables there, but I do think that all of us are in agreement that we should start out with a good vision, and if we have to trim a little bit for reasons of cost or for reasons of parking, it ought to be thoughtful compromises as opposed to starting out and saying, well, we can't lose any parking spaces, so we're going to hem this thing in and end up with something that doesn't achieve anybody's goals. So.
Do you have a target date for the final design? Is there an end to this process?
No end. No, there's this is government. There'll never be an end.
By
Yeah,
January,
yeah.
end of January, right?
Yeah, yeah.
End of January, Russ. Yeah, this is moving.
So,
construction.
well, so this goes in parallel. As I mentioned, we have this grant of a little over $1.5 million with a village match of $750,000, $225,000. I'm sorry, $2,250,000 all in for the project that we alluded to along Manville Road and incorporating this Park Plaza, whatever it turns into. Not clear right now how those numbers will actually work out. There are a lot of constraints about what we can use the federal money for, and so we'll obviously be careful about that. But I think all in, our goal is to have what Jamie's firm would produce as a set of documents that are attached to the set of documents our civil engineer produces for the Manville Road streetscape improvements, and have that all go to bid together as a consolidated project. So if you ask DOT what the timeline looks like on that, it would be dispiriting. But I think we can do better because we're already at least having, I think we're sliding into second base if we haven't even rounded towards third. So hard to say, but certainly it's our goal to be sending this out to bid sometime in the year 2018, as soon as we realistically can. There are some hurdles to leap in the bureaucracy about using the grant money, but have I misstated anything, Patty? Are you? Yeah. So, and there are discussions. Right now, we're in the midst. We've hired a traffic company that's doing traffic counts at all the relevant intersections in order to assess the service levels and what the implications might be when we close that elbow out of the commuter side of Memorial Plaza. Those are all concerns. Likewise, the management of the traffic at the intersection by Manville and Grant and Memorial Plaza, the intersection at Washington Avenue. All those things are new data going to be fed back into the system to update the data that was used when they were originally designed. So
would there be collaboration with the Department of Parks and Rec and Clinton Street? Just to see, to find out what their strengths are and how that could be incorporated into some of the events.
Who do you think our partners should be? Who should we go talk to? They're on my list.
I'm sorry?
I have that Department of Rec on the list of people to go have a conversation with.
Right.
To follow up on these ideas and start brainstorming with them. Well, you know, out of this list, you know, is there a piece of this that you could participate in?
Right.
And I'm asking anybody else to just sort of throw out any other partners
Chamber of Commerce.
that you think we should talk to.
Well, the Clinton Street.
Clinton
Right, the
Street.
senior center, right?
Older adults. But also to, somebody on our table was saying, there's no open space for kids to play in these parks. So in other words, if there's an event going on in this, project we're talking about, maybe they can coordinate it with something at Silver and Sailors Fields. There's a cross-pollination of uses.
No, that's a good idea. So a program doesn't necessarily disappear, it just
Right,
moves.
to be, right.
Uh-huh.
We'll utilize all these.
Does anybody else want to get an organization up on this list? Obviously, you know, we want to talk to the Burns.
How about Public Works to make sure it's maintained?
Yep, good idea.
Public Works.
Just try it.
The Burns.
Burns.
I think you might want to talk to the Chamber of Commerce, especially if
Chamber,
you're thinking about food trucks and that kind of stuff. Also, the superintendent of schools, we have a lot of kids that are on the spectrum. And features that this might have that might be a benefit for them.
Farmers Market.
Yes,
Right.
on my list. Yeah.
As far as the stage and stuff goes, ARC Stages would probably be interested in, participating in that in some way. They've got lots of programming that might spill over into that.
Yeah, that's good.
It'd be really neat to see them in that space.
Mhm.
Yeah.
someday.
You have
And-
conservation advisory council on this?
Yeah.
And can we have recycling bins in this new park? No.
They're hitting us on all our vulnerabilities, Patty. They're hitting us in all our vulnerabilities here, which is good. Yeah.
Artistry dance project.
You might also think about storage, because if you're gonna have things like seating and things like that, modular tables or whatever it's gonna be, that it has to be stored someplace in bad weather.
Especially with all the flexible programs.
Yeah.
Well, folks, I think we should wrap it up. We're running behind schedule, but you know, hang around and ask
Yeah.
more questions if you want. We'll stay behind.
Three things to say. One is thank you guys. This has been great. Really, really appreciate your coming out. Tomorrow's election day. Go and vote. And then the folks at Films on Purpose who have this film series have their next film on Wednesday at 6:30 at Holy Innocents. It's free and they have great subject matter every time. So thank you.